Hello everyone, welcome back. I hope you've all had a really good half term. Today we are going to start the week with some measurement in maths. Now I know that some people don't have rulers or anything at home that you can use to measure, so instead of using things like this in this video, I'm going to be using things that you might have at home to measure, and in a minute I'll explain to you what that looks like. Okay, so I'll show you what we're going to do now. So instead of using a ruler or a tape measure or a meter stick to measure, I'm going to be using objects that I have at home. So first, the thing that I'm going to be measuring is my pack of pencils. I don't know how long it is yet. And the unit of measurement that I'm going to use this time is lemons. So I'm going to try and estimate how many lemons long this pack of colouring pencils is. Now, if I look at them both, I think that it might be about 4 lemons, or maybe 4.5 or 5. So on my estimate, I'm going to write down 4 lemons, because that's how long I think it's going to be. So now I'm going to measure it and we'll see if my estimate was close. So just like when you're using a ruler, you need to put your object right onto the edge, so I can see that the end of my lemon starts right where the packet of colouring pencils starts. So I'm going to take one and then I'm going to put my finger there so I know that I'm not missing out any space. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and then if I move it, now when I go into 4, it's only half of the lemon. So that means that my colouring pencils were 1, 2, 3.5 lemons long. So that means that my estimate was only a little bit off, and my answer would be 3.5 or 3.5 lemons. Okay, so that's just one way that you can use something at home to measure. So you don't have to use a lemon, you can use anything else you want. I'm going to show you some more examples now. The next object I'm going to be measuring is a wizard that we've made, and I'm going to be measuring it with a candle or a tea light. So I need to look at the size of my unit of measurement and then look at my object, and I need to estimate how many candles do I think the wizard will be. And I think it might be about 6 candles. So on my estimation, I'm going to write 6 candles long. And then I'm going to measure it. So I've got my object and I'm going to measure it long ways instead of sideways. So I need to put my object right on the edge. So even though there's purple, I can see that there's little feet sticking out as well. I need to get it all the way on the edge. Otherwise I'm not making an accurate measurement. So I'm all the way on the edge. I've got 1. And I need to think about where it stops. 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's still a tiny bit more. So that means it's about 5.25. So that's what I'm going to write. So my answer is 5.25, or if you know what number that is, it's 5.25 candles. So my wizard is 5.25 candles long. Okay, now the next object I'm going to be measuring is a book. Now I'm going to measure it long ways instead of sideways. And then the thing that I'm going to be using to measure it with is a battery. Now I need to estimate, so I'm going to put my battery on top of my book and I'm going to guess how many batteries long my book will be. And I think it will be about 5 batteries long. Now I'm going to show you something else that I haven't shown you yet with the other ones that might be important if you're doing this. So if I'm measuring this with my battery and I'm doing this, I've already got one battery here now, so I'm not going to move on to the next bit and turn it any other direction, because if it's slightly turned, I'm not going to get an accurate measurement. So if this is one battery, and then I do this and say that that's another battery, it's not going to be accurate, because if I check and put it the long way, my battery is going a little bit off of the book, so I know it's not accurate. So I'm going to start it exactly on the edge, and I need to make sure the battery is always in the same position. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've got a tiny bit of the battery coming off, so I think that's about 4 3/4. So on my whiteboard, I'm going to write my answer as 4 3/4, or 4.75. Batteries. Always remember to write your unit of measurement. Even if it's something like this, you should always write it. I forgot to write it there on my estimation. Okay, so my estimation was 5, and the answer was 4.75 batteries. The next object I'm going to measure is this bottle. Now, I'm not going to tell you what unit of measurement I'm going to use. I want you to choose the best one for me. Now, I have Tipp-Ex, which is quite small, and I have a pencil, which is a bit taller. It's about 2 times bigger than the Tipp-Ex. Now, if I put the bottle next to it, which of these things do you think might be better to measure the bottle with? So the bottle is bigger than both of them, but the pencil is quite tall and the Tipp-Ex is a bit smaller. So just think for a minute or a second or two, which one might be better to use, and I'm going to tell you now. So I'm going to use the Tipp-Ex to measure this, because if I use the pencil, it wouldn't have been accurate. So if I did try and use the pencil, it'd be 1 here, and then it might have just gone a bit too long, so it's a bit harder to make a measurement. But if I use something small, it's going to be a lot closer to the actual measurement. So I'm going to measure it now. I'm going to do it long ways, and I'm going to start right on the edge. So I've got 1, 2, and I think that is exactly 3 Tipp-Ex. So I can write my unit of measurement, which is Tipp-Ex. And my estimation, I don't think I gave it an estimation. Let's ignore that one for now. And then my answer was 3 Tipp-Ex. Let's check it again because I'm not sure now. So I've got 1, 2. See how I'm carefully putting my finger exactly where it ends? And 3. Okay, so whatever you're measuring with, even if it's not a ruler or a tape measure or a meter stick, you always need to make sure that you start on the edge of whatever it is you're measuring and always end on the edge as well. Otherwise, you're not going to get an accurate measurement. Okay, one last thing. Now I'm going to measure my bottle again, and I've got 2 more objects that I can use to measure it. I've got some tape and I've got a battery. Now if you look at the size, they're about the same, but I want you to think about which one might be easier or better to measure with. Now if I place this here, you can see it, and if I put this here, you can see it. Now which one do you think would be an easier tool to use as my unit of measurement? Now I think the better one would be my battery, because it's a bit more straight and it's a lot easier to hold, and I can get a more accurate reading. Whereas this, because it's round, I feel like it's a bit harder to move around and it's not as clear as using something straight and long, which I think is why rulers are the best thing that people use to measure most of the time. So let's measure with both. and then find out how accurate we are. So with the battery, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 batteries, and this should be about the same. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I've got a tiny bit of room left, so it's about 5 and a little bit more. Now, if I measure it with my ruler now, I can get the exact measurement. So I need to make sure that I start on the line. Remember, the start of the ruler isn't where you need to start measuring from. It's here where 0 is. So it's not the start of the ruler here, it's here. So when I'm holding my bottle, instead of putting my ruler here, I need to move it so it starts where 0 is, right there. Okay, so I'm going to do it and then I'll find out how long it is. So if I look really carefully, make sure it stays in the right place, I can see that my bottle is about 24 or 25 centimeters. So let's say 24.5 centimeters. Thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you learned something. Next time we're going to be looking at different types of measurement, and we're going to be adding and subtracting some measurements too.